Hey guys, welcome to tonight's episode of Q&A with Dr. A. Lots of great things tonight, including some food reviews, which we're going to go over, and probably one of the greatest questions that I've been really waiting for you guys to ask, which is, what is a version of a healthy coffee? Because we all know that we love coffee deep down, right? I mean, I especially do, and I know, Tom, you do too. So the thing is this, ready? We're going to take a deep dive into each of these questions, but I got to get a little precursor. Tonight's a pretty heady scientific Q&A with Dr. A. You can obviously see we've got some conversion graphs up through here, some thyroid-specific questions, but I want to be honest, you guys are really getting down to some good ones now. So let's have a lot of fun and start tonight. Don't forget, we broadcast this live every Thursday right here on AskDrErnest.com/TV. And so you can watch previous episodes as well by scrolling below this video, I believe, and looking for our older episodes. And also, I've been getting a lot of direct questions on, hey, does this help with this, and what should I do for that? So I'm offering the chance, if you're watching this and you're not currently a patient with us, or you're looking for more investigational studies, either some tests or a direction you need to be headed in, to scroll to the second button you see below this video, and you can actually get a consultation time directly set with me. I'm offering up to 15 minutes over the phone, no cost whatsoever, and I can take a deeper dive into your health to see if I can help you or point you into a direction of what you should be doing. So let's kick this off. Okay, first question says, if I'm on Synthroid, can I take your functional thyroid test? What would your results tell me if I'm being medicated? So I want to sort of see if you guys can see this. And I'm going to explain what this is and why the answer to your question is yes, you can. So here's what's going on. This is a graph that shows essentially how your thyroid secretes a hormone called T4. And T4 goes through the bloodstream and is absorbed through the liver and the intestines and must be converted into the active hormones, which is known as T3. And sometimes we start to push the conversion over to a nastier sort of active bad hormone, if you want to call it, called reverse T3. And why it's important to know if your conversion is happening is because really that's where the magic is going on. So if your T4 is synthetically altered, just realize you can still do the functional test, but more than likely your T4 is going to come back saying it's in the normal range, as long as you're taking the normal amounts. I'm more concerned with, is the synthetic T4 you're taking being converted properly? So there's an enzyme called deiodinase, which takes the iodine off the thyroid hormone T4, turning it into T3 because the numbers tell us how many iodines are on there. That enzyme is activated by selenium and magnesium, and its conversion takes place in the liver and the intestines. So even if you're taking Synthroid or levothyroxine or some version, Armour Thyroid or even Nature Thyroid, what we want to do is make sure the T4 is being converted properly. So the functional test is looking to see that this process is taking place. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is that when you're stressed out or you're chemically toxic, your T4 will be converted into reverse T3, and that thing is nasty. It binds to the hormone receptor for T3. It doesn't ever let go, and it makes you tired, fatigued, it makes your hair fall out, it makes you gain weight, it makes you have all the problems of a thyroid issue, even though upstream TSH, T4, and T3 look fine. The other thing that we want to do is look to find out, is your intestines conversion actually happening properly? And what we know is that you can develop antibodies against either the thyroid peroxidase enzyme, or you can develop antibodies against the globulin protein. And this is important because inside the thyroid, the globulin protein is what carries the thyroid hormone, so you may be destroying that enzyme, or you have to convert and actually add the iodine to the globulin to get the 4 and the 3. So the reason that you can still take the functional test is we're not actually checking your thyroid when we do this thyroid panel, because we're looking for the conversion process. And in essence, this check should be done for everyone, because even if you don't have a thyroid problem, you may have a conversion issue and you might be developing a thyroid problem. Don't forget, an estimated 27 million Americans have a thyroid issue and only half of them have been diagnosed. So there's a high likelihood that you may have a thyroid issue without even knowing it. But you're saying you're taking the T4, which tells me something's going on because your body should naturally balance itself out. So hopefully that helps to answer this question. Next question says, what exactly is raw cheese? And is there a better type of raw cheese than others? So yes, there are certain types of raw cheeses. So I got 3 here, different types of cheese. I don't think they're going to stand up. So 3 different cheeses here. And I want to walk you guys through what's good and or bad about each of them. So this cheese right here is made by a company called Kerrygold. What I do like about them is it's a grass-fed cheese. But by definition, it's not raw because it's been pasteurized. And so that's the difference between a raw and a non-raw cheese. Pasteurized cheese has been heated to a certain temperature to try to kill bacteria. And the problem with that is we've got really good healthy bacteria in the cheeses that we want to not kill. Now, is this better than your classic sort of, craft American cheese? Absolutely. What's interesting is notice how it's a cheddar cheese, but it's white, because most cheese is, of course, supposed to be the color of milk. So if you're eating an orange cheddar cheese, it's got certain dyes and things added to it. So we want to toss all those away. Is Kerrygold a good cheese? Yes, because it's grass-fed. Is there something better? Yes, unpasteurized. So this company, Organic Valley, says that they have a raw cheese, and what you'll notice with this one is it's a mild cheddar cheese. It's got unpasteurized milk as its source, and so it's better because it's raw, but then notice that it says it's made with pasture-raised cows. So the question becomes, is it really a grass-fed cow? Whereas this one says it's made from grass-fed milk. So we're kind of like in the air until we call them and find out if it's, grass-fed or not. Now, I contacted Organic Valley, and they state that during the summer periods, they are pasture-raised and fed grass, but during the winter periods, they are given like some grains and hay and things like that. So I'm going to stack this one right here and say that they're kind of equal. Raw, which is better, grass-fed, which is better, so they're about the same. But of all of them, the goat milk is going to be the best, partly because of 2 things. One, most goats are fed grass inherently. They're allowed to go walk around and eat whatever they want. 2, most goats eat a lot of other things. They eat flowers and weeds and herbs and all kinds of whatever just grows around the ground. They eat sticks and all kinds of stuff. So we get a huge mixture of more wild type food processes. Second, the proteins in goat milk is much easier to digest than the proteins we find in cow's milk. And so what I like about goat's milk is that it's easier to digest, it's technically better for you, and when it's in its raw state, now we have pure, real cheese. Now, word of caution to those of you who are shopping on a budget. This guy right here is about 8 ounces and it's about $8. This guy right here is 8 ounces and it was only $4. So it's double the price, but worth it in my opinion. Secondly, if we just look at fat content, so the raw goat's milk has 8 grams of fat and 0 sugars. The what I'll call sort of raw dairy milk has 9 grams of fat, 0 sugar. So these guys stack pretty equal to each other. And this one here is unlabeled because it's the sort of a Kerrygold. It has no nutrition labels, so I don't really know exactly what it is, but most raw cheeses are high fat and 0 carbohydrates, which makes them a really good lunch option on the go. And in fact, this is my lunch for today, because if I eat this whole thing, I'm going to be filled to the brim with fats and proteins and absolutely no carbs. So hopefully that helps to answer the question in regards to what's the difference between raw and non-raw cheese, and is there one better than the other? Next question says, I really like coffee and I'm trying to weigh out my options and my differences in cost and the benefits. Is there a really good coffee out there? And in fact, it's something I've been looking for a long time. And so right here, if you guys can see this, is a company that I've been connected with, partly because I met the owner who's also a chiropractor. And Purity Coffee is by far, in my opinion, one of the best kind of coffees that you can have for 2 reasons. One is it's certified organic. Number 2 is they guarantee it to be free from mold and toxins, pesticides, and herbicides. So if you scroll down below this video, you'll find a link that will take you directly to the Purity Coffee page. And it's really inexpensive. You're looking at about $19 for a pound of pure organic coffee. So are there some benefits to drinking coffee? Yes. Listen, there's research out there that shows it can help to stimulate the liver, it can help you to burn fat, but usually when they do the studies on it, they're looking at the coffee fruit or they're looking at the raw coffee bean. So what's very important with any kind of coffee is that you make sure that you're drinking it as close to the roasting date as you can. And again, what I really like about Purity and what they do is that when you order this coffee online, they will roast it for you and then ship it to you within a certain time frame so that the bag arrives with the roasting date on it. Now, if I ordered it a week ago, they will roast it a week ago, ship it to me 2 days later, and then I will have it within the roasting week. And what's unique about that is the oils stay preserved, it's very, very fresh, and it has a great taste. And because this company guarantees there's no mold or pesticides or herbicides that were sprayed on the coffee plants, you get a much healthier, higher quality coffee. Plus, you can use this coffee and make sure when you're using it for coffee enemas that you're not going to be introducing dangerous or foreign chemicals or pesticides or herbicides. The other thing about coffee is that if you do drink coffee, make sure you're drinking it during your fasting states and that you're adding MCT oil, coconut oil, and butter directly to the coffee to increase your fat content. Next question says, I get nauseous every time I drink your smoothie. It's the coconut milk protein, especially during my 4-day fasting. What's going on? Well, it depends on a couple things. Number one is if you're having difficulty with the smoothies, like because you're getting nauseous, it's usually an indication you're having difficulty burning fats, and welcome to the club. Most people, when we first put them on this smoothie fast, have difficulty. And it's not just with like nauseousness. Sometimes it can be to the degree of vomiting or breaking out in rashes. Whenever your body reacts negatively to something, it's usually an indication that there's more going on that we need to address. So the first step would be take the enzymes that digest fats when you drink that smoothie, lipase specifically, because you're probably having difficulty digesting the fat. The longer fat sits in your stomach and your duodenum, which is the upper part of the small intestine, the more nauseous you get. Second would be, do you have your gallbladder? Because if you don't, you have to understand you constantly trickle very small amounts of bile 24/7 into the intestines, which can be a little bit of an irritation to the intestine. So usually when we dump a lot of high fats into you, you don't have that bolus squeeze that someone with their gallbladder can do. So you need to also be taking bile salts and bile to help you to digest that. Third would be, we also have to recognize that it is normal when you detox to go through some reactions of nauseousness and bloating and breaking out in rashes sometimes. Not everybody does it, so for me it's the degree of how toxic you are. The more difficult time you have when fasting in the beginning, it's usually because we have a lot of stuff that needs to get pulled out. So is it normal? It depends. Some people get it and some people don't. So I'd like to say if you don't have your gallbladder, it's a normal response sometimes. But in essence, if you do a smoothie fast and you're drinking high-fat protein shakes, you're not supposed to be getting nauseous or bloating or gassy or anything to that effect. So we still need to do some clean out and repair to the intestines more than likely. Hopefully that helps to answer your question. Take the enzymes which will help you to digest your fats. Next question says, I'm going in for my regular checkup with my doctor, and what are some good tests to ask for? My insurance may cover these tests. Okay, here we go. Ask for a CBC and a UA. Those are included in most tests anyway. They're going to run them for you. But what we want to say is, can you add these specific tests to those CBCs and the UAs? So number one would be a full thyroid panel. TSH, T3, T4, reverse T3, both free and bound T3 and T4, your thyroid peroxidase antibodies, and your thyroid globulin antibodies. Why? Because we want to see what this whole process is doing. Now, chances are, if you came to my thyroid seminar, you're going to find out that they're probably going to say to you, these aren't covered by your insurance, or we can't test them, which may be code for we don't know what to do if the results come back. Because, for example, if you get an enzyme that shows you have an antibody response because of a leaky gut, they can only give you the thyroid medication, and that's not going to address this. So the solution is the same as if they don't test you and they just do TSH, T3, and T4. So make sure you do a full thyroid panel. Next would be get your cholesterol tested, but ask for an NMR particle test. It looks at the size of the particles, not just the number. Because just like anything else in respects to cholesterol, the size does matter. Next, you'd want to ask for your ESR, which is your SED rate. It tells us how inflamed you are. Homocysteine, C-reactive protein, tells us how inflamed you are. A1C will tell us what your sugars have been for the last 120 days or so. And of course, the fasting blood glucose. And I'm a big fan of getting vitamin D3 checked regularly. That would be an incredible panel. If they won't do it, I have one that we can run for you. It's very simple. We order it through our office. You walk into LabCorp, results are back within 24 hours. Next question says, how do I get rid of belly fat? What are the best foods that will help me to get fit? And so here's the biggest answer to this question. Most people think you can go to the gym and crunch your way into flat abs, when in fact, most of your abs are actually made inside your kitchen. So I like your question on what foods can I eat. So here's what we want to do. We want to eat foods that promote fat burning. That's going to be fats and lots of them. So coconut, avocados, nuts and seeds, hemp, etc. We also want to stay as far away as you can from things like grains, so corn, wheat, rice, soy, dairy products, etc. Those guys tend to wreck it because they boost your inflammatory process. In addition to that, I would highly suggest that you consider getting into a ketotic state, because specifically ketone bodies tend to shred fat out of the liver and the intestines, which is where most of us store it in our belly. So remember, most belly fat is visceral fat, meaning it's fat around your organs, not fat that's subcutaneous or under the skin. So if you go to the gym and you do crunches, you're strengthening your abs, which is just going to help to squeeze the visceral fats in. It may just distribute them around. It'll help, but it's not going to make your belly go away. The best thing to do is to get rid of visceral fat, which is by going into ketosis, staying as far away from grains, which would be corn, wheat, rice, soy, dairy products, which would be, of course, your milks and your yogurts that are standard. You can do the raw cheeses that we discussed, and make sure your sugars are low to zero. I suggest typically that if you do your vegetables, they're green, and that we're not doing things like colored vegetables because they have more sugar inside of them. Last question says, I'm fighting cancer. Should I use your plant proteins or whey proteins to make the shakes? Well, here's the trick question behind this. When it comes to cancer, we have to watch out for the casein proteins that are found in a lot of protein powders. And there's two types of casein. There's A1 casein and A2 casein. Now, most of your inexpensive, sort of cheap over-the-counter proteins are probably coming from conventional dairy source, which would mean it's conventional whey protein, which means it's probably whey isolate, and maybe, if you're lucky, a isolate concentrate blend. But I guarantee you they're all in the A1 casein group. Why? Because A2 casein comes from a specific genetic strain of cows. You could call them heirloom cows, and they're very expensive to get, to breed, and to maintain. Now, the protein powder that we use, the grass-fed sort of perfect protein, comes specifically from a company that was owned by Jordan Rubin, Beyond Organic, and is guaranteed to come from that heirloom strain of cows. So we have the A2 casein grass-fed raw protein powder. That's why there's a bit of a price to ours, because it's guaranteeing that it's within the healthy states. Second would be, though, to watch out for just casein in general, because it's a protein that can kind of spike an immune reaction. We don't want that to happen when we want your immune system to kill cancer cells. Another option would be the plant protein is great because there's typically no casein at all in the plant proteins, but a lot of plant proteins use rice and even pea and things to that effect, so there's usually slightly higher carbohydrates in the plant proteins. Ours is specifically blended to keep the carbohydrates down, but in essence, typically what we want to do is try to go after the whey proteins. But remember, anytime we're fighting cancers, we don't want to just do it by drinking smoothies. We want to get to the cause. With cancer, there's always two main goals. Stop producing current cancer cells and try to find the underlying root, and then start to address that. And so typically with most cancers, it's either a virus, a hormone imbalance, some sort of a pH difference where you're too acidic instead of too alkaline, or you're oxygen deprived because cancer dislikes oxygen. So I love the fact you're going after it with your proteins, but make sure you get a full body sort of functional evaluation to determine exactly what your interferences are. Remember, if you watched our episode last week, we talk about 5 key interferences that cause things like cancer and the inability for you to burn fat and everything else. It's the way we think, because if we are running on misinformation or we're going off of myths that we've been holding as truths, that'll hold us back. So that our mindset is key. Your spinal system, especially when we talk about cancers and losing weight and everything else, your brain is making every organ inside of you work. So if you want to burn fat out of your liver or out of your intestines, make sure your brain is connected to those organs at 100%. Third is, of course, eating really clean, high-quality proteins and fats, making sure your nutrition is on par 1,000%. Fourth is, of course, making sure that you are lean, you are mean and you're filled with oxygen. So we want to keep your metrics, your BMI, your body fat percentages, your water ratios in the normal zones. And then lastly, fifth, you need to detox. Most cancers are also based upon toxins being present, so we want to suck those out. So hopefully you guys found tonight to be informative. Really, really good questions. Don't forget, you can also submit yours each week by scrolling down and clicking on the Submit Your Question Here button. You'll send them straight to us. We'll answer them on air every Thursday at 7 p.m. right here on AskDrErnst.com/TV. And also just don't forget to join us each week for the Ask Dr. Ernst show, which airs every single Saturday at 3 p.m. on 1110 a.m., 99.3 FM, and streams online on WBT.com. You can also go to iTunes and type in the phrase Ask Dr. Ernst. That's AskDrErnst, and you can find my podcast, which has over 6 months of shows that are topic specific. So if you're looking to lose weight, you can do that one. If you're looking to fix your thyroid, you can listen to that one. And speaking of thyroids, we're doing a overflow from my last week's thyroid seminar that we did. We had a packed house, and so I'm going to host a webinar on the 15th of September this month. And what we're going to do is give you guys 3 time options you can pick from. So here's what's great about it. If you want to watch it during lunch, hop on the one at noon. If you want to watch it when you just get home, hop on the one at 6 o'clock. If you want to watch the one when your kids go to sleep, there's one at 8 p.m. for that. And they're all on the same day, and they're all going to be broadcasted directly to you. There's a link below you can click so you can register, and I hope to see you not only there, but next week for Q&A with Dr. A. Until then, thanks so much, guys. Good night.